The FBI allegedly arrested an 18-year-old Montgomery County, Maryland high school student for allegedly planning a mass shooting at their high school and their elementary school.
And the FBI says it has stopped a potential disaster, a school shooting at a high school and an elementary school. They have arrested a teenager in Maryland who they say had detailed plans to target both his high school and where he went to elementary school. Here's our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, now.
Tonight, the FBI, along with state and local authorities in Maryland, say they thwarted 18-year-old Alex Yee's plans to shoot up his high school and his former elementary school after authorities discovered what they called a manifesto with detailed plans to commit mass murder.
Yee writes about targeting his former elementary school because little kids make easier targets. He strategized on how to access the easiest classrooms in his high school and how he would be able to sneak a gun into the school.
Yee, whose legal name is Andrea but uses male and female pronouns and goes by Alex, was known to authorities as having a history of mental health issues and an obsession with school shootings, issues that led him to be removed from school and placed into virtual learning last year. Last month, Yee allegedly shared the 129-page Google document with someone he knew, calling it a work of fiction. But police say when the person read it, they immediately called the police.
He also wrote that he wanted to become a serial killer instead of a mass murderer because serial killers are romanticized a lot more.
Yee was taken to a psychiatric hospital and is now being held without bond, with one count of a threat of mass violence. Police say Yee is obsessed with the Columbine High School massacre. David, tomorrow is the 25th anniversary of Columbine. Authorities clearly taking no chances.
Hard to believe, 25 years. Pierre Thomas tonight. Pierre, thank you.
Now, according to reports, 18-year-old Andrea Yee, who goes by male pronouns and calls himself Alex Yee, allegedly authored a 129-page manifesto where he detailed how he'd carry out a mass shooting at his high school and allegedly would also carry out a mass shooting at his elementary school. And after sharing this document allegedly with someone on social media, through Google Docs, this person read the manifesto, and after reading the 129-page manifesto of Alex Yee, they quickly contacted law enforcement, and after law enforcement got in touch with Alex Yee, Alex Yee claimed it was a fictional story. However, after looking at their whole internet background and all of the things that they participated online, they started to see that there was a whole list of information as related to mass shootings that Alex Yee was participating in, and a whole lot of stuff that they were talking about regarding the Columbine shooting, which allegedly Alex Yee had a fixation on. And according to these reports, Alex Yee, as he had a fixation on the Columbine shooting, also wanted to talk about being a serial killer, and as a result of all of this information that the FBI received as related to this alleged plan for this shooting and the background of Alex Yee, they decided to arrest Alex Yee and take him into custody on charges as related to these alleged plans to participate in this mass shooting at this high school and an elementary school. Now, the FBI see this as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the alleged manifesto and the alleged plans of Andrea or Alex Yee, it fits the pattern and profile for behavior that I talk about in both of my books, The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis. And it's clear to me that Alex Yee was living in a place I talk about in my books, The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis, I call the rose-colored reality. Now, the rose-colored reality is a place that men and women in crisis live in because they cannot cope with dealing with life in the real world. So they go to a place adjacent to the real world where everything looks and feels like our world, but the whole world is completely distorted. And in that world that is distorted by a rose colored reality, these individuals oftentimes go to another place in that rose colored reality I call the secret world. And Alex Yee basically went to the secret world because that place in that rose colored reality was a safe space for him to express his what he believed to be his natural masculinity and natural sexuality. Now, when individuals enter the secret world, they think that this is like the real world. Unfortunately, everything in that world is completely distorted. And in the secret world, they go to feel safe about expressing their natural masculinity. And as they express their natural masculinity, they wind up participating in a disturbing ideal of reality. And that disturbing ideal of reality for Alex Yee was a place where they started to believe that the Columbine killers were actually people you should idolize. And this is the same type of perception of reality that many incels had as related to mass shooter Elliot Rodger regarding the La Isla Vista mass shooting. Now, Alex Yee had the same idea about the Columbine killers that the incels had about Elliot Rodger, in that they romanticized them as heroes, when in actuality, when you look at all of the actual reports from an objective perspective, the Columbine killers were not heroes. No, these were individuals who were just really sick and depraved and thought the way that they could deal with bullying wasn't with conflict resolution, but was with participating in extreme violence that they did because these males didn't know how to make life work because they didn't have proper male life skills or male survival skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, or the ability to resolve conflicts or use logic and reason. No, the Columbine killers themselves were individuals who lived in an extremely rose-colored reality where they created a world for themselves where they saw themselves as the good guys and looked to use their own rose-colored perception of reality to justify participating in mass murder. And when it comes to individuals like Alex Yee, oftentimes when they hear about these people like the Columbine killers, because these individuals do not have a healthy perception of reality, what they do is go out and believe that these individuals were heroes. And what's really scary is that because of the internet and a lot of forums online, they get misinformation. And as they get misinformation, they wind up entering into what I call an echo chamber. In another one of my books, Stop Simping in Cyberspace. And as they enter into the echo chamber, what this does is validate all of their ideas regarding these individuals like Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold without ever giving them any sort of objective analysis of the violence they participate in. And as these people start reading this misinformation, what happens is they start feeding it into their rose-colored reality and believing that this person is a role model that they should follow. And that's basically what happened with Alex Yee. As they got fixated on the Columbine killers, this became an obsession. And as it became an obsession, what happened with Alex Yee is that they wanted to follow in the footsteps of these killers and wanted to follow in the footsteps of these killers by having their own plan to participate in a mass shooting themselves. And as they made these plans to participate in this mass shooting, Alex Yee wrote this 129-page manifesto allegedly strategizing how he'd carry out this act. And again, as they were writing this manifesto, this was them writing a plan that was all in their head because in their rose-colored reality, they don't live in a world with real people. And because they're not living in a world with real people, they cannot see the real consequences of their actions. And a lot of cases, what they do as they're living in their rose-colored reality, they don't understand that if you go out here and commit these kind of crimes, police can fire back at you. Moreover, you might run into somebody with a firearm looking to defend themselves. And in a case of these planned shootings, again, people can push back. But in these rose-colored realities these individuals have, they believe nobody will be able to fight them back. And they don't believe that no one will fight them back because as Alex Yee was writing this manifesto, they were writing about looking to allegedly murder children because they wanted to go out in infamy. This is the kind of plan that these individuals have because, again, in a lot of cases, they're living inside their heads. They're living inside of a fantasy world, and they're not seeing a world of real people who can push back, real people who can go out here and defend themselves, and real people who can see their clear and present threat. That's what Alex Yee did not see as he looked to share this manifesto with someone online. And as they shared this manifesto with someone online who was living in the real world, as they shared this manifesto with a real person, that real person saw the real, clear, and present danger Alex Yee was to himself and others. And thank God they contacted law enforcement. And as they contacted law enforcement, they then did their own investigation. And even though Alex Yee said that this was a fictional story, the truth as related to reality is that this person's behavior was disturbing, just as disturbing as the behavior of Sung-Hee Cho, a mass shooter at Virginia Tech, who also wrote stories, just as disturbing as the behavior of Ethan Crumbly, an individual who was drawing pictures of participating in gun violence, and just as disturbing as Chris Simo, an individual who made YouTube videos detailing his plans to participate in a mass shooting. I mean, when you look at the behavior of all of these mass shooters and how they basically detailed plans about how they wanted to commit murder, and the behavior of an individual who I did recently in Idaho planned to participate in a terror attack, you cannot say that that this fiction isn't based on real events or planned real events, because these individuals basically were writing out their plans. And again, they were writing out these plans to, one, get attention for themselves, and two, they were writing out these plans to go out and possibly participate in an act of violence, and three, these manifestos as they were written, if they were caught in time, are a cry for help. And hopefully Alex Yee will be able to get the help he needs, because he has sat there for years and people said that he possibly had mental health problems and they wanted to keep him away from other students before he could do harm to them. So thank God they were able to get to this individual who clearly is a person in crisis, who, thank God, was able to get an intervention before they could participate in their acts of violence. Thank God somebody was able to get to this individual, because clearly there's a behavior pattern right here that was caught before he could do harm to someone, because these plans to, again, write a manifesto to do harm to someone at 18 years old, that really shows that there's really something wrong with this individual, because I myself was a writer at 18 years old, and I was basically writing fictional stories like the first John Haynes. I wasn't writing stories to do harm to anyone. No, a person who's an aspiring writer isn't looking to do harm to others. No, that's when somebody's writing about hurting people, that's a clear sign that there's something seriously wrong with this individual, and they need to be taken out of society and put into a place where they can get help. And that's what's happening here. Hopefully, as the FBI does its investigation and puts out its charges, they can go out here and possibly put this person away so that they won't harm anyone. And in this case, again, this was a person in crisis in desperate need of help. because they had a picture of reality that's completely distorted, completely just out of touch with reality. I mean, when you're sitting here making plans to participate in a mass shooting, when your idols are mass shooters like Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, this is a sign that this person has serious issues. And what I'm finding as related to these people that are coming up that are younger is that we're seeing a pattern with this, because a lot of people, sadly, as they are raised on the internet, are not really filtering the information that they're getting objectively. And as they're not filtering the information, they're getting a lot of misinformation inside of these echo chambers. And as they get into these echo chambers, what happens to these individuals is that they wind up on a road to becoming even worse as men and women in crisis, because they're not really understanding that everything on the web you have to take with a grain of salt. And when you have sites that and boards that are praising killers like the incels and people like those who are basically making information talking about these killers and praising these killers, there's a real problem with this type of information. And this is why you need parents to vet this information and show you the big picture regarding it. Because when you have a child who's sitting there listening to this information and then talking about they want to be a mass shooter and a serial killer, there's something really wrong with the information that they're getting. And sadly, there's no parents there to vet this information. And that's what makes these kids like this, again, a danger to everyone. Because when I heard this story, again, it just really was sad, because it's an example of what happens when a child is left in crisis because they're growing up like a stalk with no sort of guidance, no sort of structure, no sort of order. And some will say, oh, it's a possible mental health issue, but this issue was exacerbated because you have a child left on the internet getting all of this misinformation from non-credible sources, and they're getting this information from non-credible sources because there's no parent there to guide them. And that's one of the other big problems nobody wants to talk about as related to the man or the woman crisis, the way we parent children. Because when I look at the pattern of more recent videos that I've done, I see that the kids are not getting parented. And as they're not getting parented, they're being left in front of the internet. And as they're left in front of the internet, they're just getting a whole bunch of misinformation that is misguiding them into making heroes out of people like mass shooters. And again, this is a dangerous thing as related to kids on the internet without guidance, because families are just out of whack, because we don't want to acknowledge the core foundation of both the man and woman crisis and the impact that it's having on the family. Because the reason why things are getting worse with the man crisis and the woman crisis is because we don't want to acknowledge that the way we're raising kids is raising kids that are becoming more and more dysfunctional. And as these kids become more and more dysfunctional, we're not acknowledging that the family unit we have in America is broken. And that's why we're seeing not only a rise in the man crisis as related to frequency of events, we're seeing the ages of these individuals get younger and younger, and them participating in more and more disturbing and violent behavior. They're all doing this because there is no family unit, because the way America is working really isn't working at building a society of healthy adults and healthy individuals. We're not really raising a healthy environment for our families and our kids. And we really have to readjust our country as related to the way we raise children and families and the way we work. Because if we don't do it, what we're going to have are the ages of these individuals getting younger and younger as these children are growing up to be children of the corn, growing up like stalks with no structure and order, being raised by the internet, which is worse than TV, because the thing with the internet is that the internet has more misinformation than actual information as related to a lot of websites. So we are having a problem, and this case basically shows this, because you have a person who just really is in a really deeply troubling situation. And again, this is all because we don't want to acknowledge that we have a man crisis in this country, a woman crisis in this country, a family crisis in this country, because the way we have been raising children since the rise of the feminist movement has basically led to a lot of kids winding up becoming more and more lost. And again, when you have a child who is aspiring to be a mass shooter and a serial killer, that clearly shows that there's a problem with our country and the way we raise children. Because when you have children like this one talking about they want to be a mass shooter and a serial killer, and one that I recently did a video about talking about being a terrorist, I mean, this is a disturbing trend, because this shows that our kids really don't have good role models, and role models to show them careers that they could pursue, and a family unit to show them a model of how to function in life. So instead of them learning functional ways on how to be a part of society, they're learning antisocial behavior. And that's the whole disturbing thing about this whole situation regarding Alex Yee. This is just another individual who is a part of a larger symptom of the dysfunctional state of our union, where instead of us raising children to become healthy men and women, we're raising children to become men and women in crisis. Now, if you want to learn why children are on the road to becoming children of the corn and the dysfunctional life paradigm that they have, you can pick up my book, The Woman Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Woman Crisis at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and Target. And if you want to learn why so many males are on a dysfunctional road and believe that violence is the only way they can go out in a blaze of infamy because they don't learn how to accomplish and achieve goals, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and Target. And if you want to see me make more videos about the man crisis, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.